So we're back following our daily planner or our planner. We're gonna follow with this panel with a internal and external hotel business experts. We give the welcome to our business partners in the operation area. This panel is constituted by the hotel operators who have the knowledge of our hotels. We include hotels that include the Fibra institutions. 28 are in the hands of external operators. Now I'm going to introduce them. Here we have to my immediate left Braulio Arzuaga. He's the general director of Presidente de Link Pro. He's a member of the council, member of the Gigante Group. He's a member also of the touristic promotion in Mexico. He has his title from or degree from Anahuac University in administration and Southern Institute or a university in Dallas. Thank you. Adrian Ruiz from Camino Real. Adrian Ruiz is the general director of Camino Real. He has been in this business or in the sector for 28 years in the hotel industry. He has been in management, administration, operations. He has a degree in accounting from Sonora University. Oscar Chavez. Oscar Chavez represents Starwood Hotels and Resort Development and Acquisitions in Mexico and Latin America, and more than 20 years in the business in sales management in Latin America. He has his degree from touristic business administration and from UP or Pan American University, Universidad PU, UP. Gabriel Ruiz is the general director of Bella Collection. He has worked in touristic developments for over 25 years. He's an engineer and has a master's from Guadalajara Autonomous University, also an engineer, like a master's in engineering from Michigan University. Welcome, Gabriel. Sergio Segura is also the director of Fibra, Prisma Hotels head, and has been a sales the leader of sales from different institutions. He also studied in a university called Cristobal Colon at Veracruz. Mainly, we're going to be focusing on 3 questions, so each one gives the right answer. Then we have question and answer sessions with the rest of the audience or our members. So the questions are about your experience with Fibrain when operating your hotels. Then second question, the processes that you implement when operating Fibrain, and with a third party. Your experience with a third-party operator. Well, the experience I've had with Presidente as a group has been very good. In our group, we have 3,000 rooms. They're part with, or we have business with Intercontinental as a brand. As operators, we have the capacity, the competencies to operate other hotels. We have signed off other hotels that pertain to other brands. And I can say that what's really interesting here when it comes to operating hotels of people that you know, because they're part of the business or the industry, it makes things easier. So sometimes, most of the times, an owner, for example, when an owner does not know the industry, or the owner is asking for things that are not linked to the industry, that pertain to other industries. When you operate or when you work with Fibrain, we eliminate that burden or problem from the customers, from the owners. And we operate as Fibra, and the results that take place in the hotels that we operate have high standards. So it's like we have occupancy of almost 80% in our hotels. We have a RevPAR of 165. I saw that you were in 600. So what does this tell us? What does this specify? This allows us to operate at an autonomous level. We have had to calibrate or adapt certain procedures. We have many processes. We have adapted some systems to the Fibrain systems. Some of the reports we have, we're still working on adjusting them. I can tell you that it's very easy. The security standards, the operation standards are well known, and it's very easy to communicate in that regard. So, Adrian? The experience we have in Hoteles Camino Real when we operate the Fibrain Hotel has been very interesting, very, very good. We have found that we are working with a group of great connoisseurs in our hotel business with a vast experience, which enables us to really have that fluid, and that communication simply flows. It's just the way in which we understand the hotel business, and without doubt, I can tell you that the relationship we have with you is very, very good. Thank you. So, so I don't know if I'm in the freedom to say that we're officially now talking about operations or hotel operations, but the truth is that I will mirror Braulio's word in the same line. I will mention that it's different. It's different when you have an operation, a business, a hotel being operated with somebody that's a knower, knows the business, because the business requirements we need to focus on have to be aligned for the right effect to take place for us to reach the objectives. It's basically the same. We have now the fortune to have met Joel, Victor, Diego, and the feedback that I've received from the ops side or the operations point of view have been they're visible. And what's very important from our experience as developers, we're developers. We developed a hotel. We sold the hotel to Fibra. They just gave it focus or aligned it, before the opening of the hotel. They aligned it, polished it, and helped the hotel provide cover all those areas in that critical location without problems. I think that from now on, we're just moving forward, doing very well, and we want to continue working, and with you as partners with other hotels. So the question is, how are we going to work with how have we worked with Fibra? Just like they said, the industry. That does not make things difficult. You're always open, listening to new things, important things that sometimes, that are just positive. You're a company that's with focus, discipline. When it comes to budget, you demand what you need to demand. You demand results, as we had mentioned before. You insist. I think that's healthy for hotels. I think that's our job. And when in Connection Bel Air, we have 10 hotels, out of which one is our property. The others, there's stakeholders or shareholders, and there's external parties. But it's funny to say that as operators, there's a good performance. There's a good performance in operations when everything works, when we have good business partners. In this case, we are partnered with Fibrain. We're shedding light on the results, and we're always doing things right. Because you're professionals in the industry as Fibra, and you know the problems. You know how to give solutions to the problems that surge. Thank you, Sergio. What can you say now? I must also mention I am responsible as Sergio of the operation or the internal behavior of Fibrain, and obviously the relationship we have our whole with third-party operators, as we've mentioned. This has happened in an environment of high professional standards, and we are sitting here before you. You know that we have a great level of expertise in this business, so we have adapted these systems, as Braulio mentioned. We just merge those systems, and we profit from merging systems. It's been a challenge, yes. Why? Because we have had to adapt the industry. The previous industry is like a traditional hotel industry. We have adapted that to meet the Fibrain method, because what the trust in itself means that we have really made it work out. We have made this situation or this process easier, that learning curve easier. We have been able to transfer the operation and hand it down to a third party. We have lowered the times. We are efficient with the times. We shorten the times of adapting. By talking to the third parties, profiting from the knowledge that other people have, that you have, the corporations that are represented have. I like to mention there's two operators that are not brand owners. These operators are operating third-party hotels. So I'd like to ask Braulio and Gabriel, do you think that there's a business opportunity and growth opportunity to grow in third-party hotels? And I'm just asking you, have you thought about this? What would you expect from this question? And do you think this would be attractive in our case? I'd like to know, could we increment, for example, could we have your presence? Could you be present with us? I know you're independent, you're operators. What can you tell us? Shed some light. So, at Grupo Presidente, we have just finished a business project, a business plan that took us some time. And that business or workflow. We established principles, and we are operators of third parties, multi-brand third party operators. It wasn't just that. It's not just the creation of a business plan. We had to get ready, prepare ourselves, IT wise, technologically speaking. We strengthened that. We're a company that have a lot of technology. We give the owner technology. We give them live results. That makes a difference. The owner gets results. We follow standards. We get educated or receive education with these standards in different brands, and we have been in contact with all the brands that are sitting at the panel or with the panel members. And next week we're going to Chicago to hold a meeting with Hyatt reps, and we're going to have a meeting there. We have plans with them. I do firmly believe that Presidente has to follow the third parties and multi-brand activities. Not only we have to give ourselves added value. It's just that, and follow our own standards, security, preventive actions, legally speaking, tax or fiscal activities. There's a corporation that deals with all of that. We have people in sales that sell every segment we have. There's different products, like line products, corporate products, and other products we offer. So we're like a group of muscles that are ready to operate third-party brands. There was a question that in which in Mexico it's very mama. It's just that the industry is breakdown. It's mom and pop. So we're the ones that really provide and give because of our experience. So it's just that, Gabriel, we have been working in operating hotels for over 15 years. We have developed a strict methodology when it comes to standards, control, quality, efficiency, maintenance, or services. When it comes to having commercial activity, we have structured, ordered, and aligned methods. For us, it's easy to do this. So we are disciplined. We operate hotels, and there's business, there's stakeholders, there's partners. So we have to always be transparent. We are accountable. We have to show numbers. So we are very close. It's feasible for us to continue working and add new hotels to our operation pipeline. It's something that we do visualize in this full landscape. I'd like to clarify something. We do have a Berlin Bel Air collection owned by us. It's not something you could apply at Fibra because it's our brand. It's for leisure. It's leisure time and beaches. Okay, we don't participate in that segment, the segment you're mentioning, and I apologize. But Adriana, what could you contribute with when you talk about characteristics as operators? What distinguishes you and what's important, and a bit of the brand. You own the brand. You operate hotels. You operate third-party hotels, your hotels, and third parties with their brands. And okay, we're a multi-brand group. Real Turismo and Camino Real owns 22 sites in operation. Out of these, 8 are operated. The rest are owned. The other brands, we have hotels which are being operated. We have the expertise, and we are enabled to give back to the owners, and our brand, the owners or the shareholders aside, in Camino Real, we're talking about profitability, yields. Camino Real is it's a well-known brand. Our position, we're ranked, we're well positioned in the market. We're aiming and creating this generation of value following standards. We follow our brand standards. In this case, talking about our brand Camino Real, I must definitely say that, we have been acknowledged. We have earned that acknowledgement in our field, because after over 20-some years of operating hotels, we're open, and we want to continue adding to our hotels being operated. Okay, Oscar. So in Starwood Hotels, I mean, you have you grand franchises. You operate So you have premium activity or premium segment activity. What do you think about the future tendencies and the diversity of segments? Will you focus on the hotel operations, like upscale hotels operation, or are you considering hotel operations of like of selected or services? I know that you're operating from Guadalajara. I think maybe from Cancun also. I don't know if you could share your information with us. And the business, you're focused in a business. When I talk about business and what we're focused on, we want to continue the operation of our own brands and upscale or luxury brands. There's not only like an entry level. It's like the luxury collection. There's like if there's like hotel owners that are it's like luxury hotels like operated by an owner. It's not just that. When we're talking about upper scale units, it depends on the opportunities. There's Westin, there's Sheraton, there's Meridian, and those brands are brands that have been developed specifically for Western Mexico and Latin America, and we think it's today is the right time due to the age or the maturity of our assets at a global scale that we can convert the brand or innovate the brand. When we're talking about a lot of people, for example, when there's people working with operators for a long term, it's not only management expertise, managing a brand expertise in that area. I mean, they become experts in managing or operating hotels. I have to mention that we do believe that the like upscale brands, except Luxury Collection, will be part of the operation. We are open. We're open in upper scale in that segment, and we talk about the select brand. I mean, we obey and we know that there's a challenge. We need to meet as a company. We need the transparency level or accountability levels. When we talk about the market and what happens, we have to ask ourselves questions. Are we adding value to the relationship we have with shareholders? There's compliance subjects, like with publicly owned companies such as Starwood. We have to move aside and enable operators that have your experience as Fibra, and we have to leave you operate hotels and make them follow a line or have them being managed in a certain way, with international knowledge, local knowledge, with your sales division well aligned. All of that could give our NOI added value and the full operation. And once again, I must say that as of today in Starwood, I can tell you this permeates, it cascades. I know it's a challenge maybe in secondary options. We know that the fee might not be just there, but with the primary hotels, we are very interested on becoming a better operator that at the end of the day gives us the output, the best dividends, and that's the bottom line. Okay, so Braulio, what's the procedure that you follow to take the operation after it's purchased by Fibra? And I have a list. There's a process. I have a list. It's a very complete, it's a very robust process. We had to go through the analysis of the contracts, the agreements, the binding agreements, the license. That took a lot of time. That analytical phase took time, and the timing and so on. And something else is the systems, the financial structure, the account, the business accounts that they have Fibrain. And for example, I just want to give you an example. What Presidente has had to change. So at the end, what you're used to, for example, seeing things a certain way, and we didn't have the systems a certain way, the same way, we had the accounting principles and but at the end we had to that made us, that consumed time. It took us time to adapt to a new system. I'm not talking about informatics. We just had to align the way we thought and renew it and follow a new way of thought, a new line of thought. And we just opened communication. We complained many times. We complained and we received complaints. Now we have one hotel with Fibrain, and it's being renewed. It's being remodeled. 7 million. That's basically the budget. Started in December. We have been directly in contact. We want a product that meets the requirements. So there's many adjustments in a contract and an agreement. That's something everybody can expect, or it's expected. Now we wanted to profit from the system as much as possible. And Adrian, in your case, what do you think? What's after the same question? The procedure after there's a procurement, or echoing what my colleague Braulio just mentioned, we went through a similar process in the hotel we have in Guanajuato, and in what Braulio just mentioned, it's like there's a few minor inconvenience situations that required solutions, very insistent communication with executives that belong to Fibra and the executives, or both sides, both parties' representatives. We voted, we had to vote, and we had to think about the experience that Fibra has. And when it comes down to procedure, for us it's very important to define and pre-establish budget and the commitment, the engagement that we have as an operator, the commitment the operator has towards the owner, in this case Fibrain. We have to see the profit and the maximum profit that could be generated from each area of the hotel, whether you call it, like, for example, commercial areas and other areas that belong to a hotel, and what they generate, so that's renewal, and that's our objective. We have to look and achieve that. We want to see about cost, payroll, expenses. We want the DOP to really show the best profitability, or the highest profitability from the ownership. It's just like, and we have to define with agreements. With Fibra, we had to go through a process in which we give the assessment, the analysis of the results. The results are analyzed weekly. That's basic in the process. I think that's core. That's core. That's the objective of the business. That's precisely it, Oscar. So we're in the middle of that process. I don't know, Oscar, if you can talk about that right now. Maybe, what we have talked about, maybe it might seem as something obvious. It's normal when an operator works directly works with an investor, and if we started operations in a hotel that's just starting, that's being renewed, the relationship between these parties has to be born from the designer, from the design, what's being plotted, what's being to be able to transmit the whole brand idea, the whole concept of the brand, to really make the designers and architects understand the whole concept, of the project. And so those projects follow and have like the right end. Gabriela, I think that for example, when you transfer, or when there's a procurement process and there's going to be a change of owner, I think there's two main points. You have to follow the book. Those are the lines that are in order, and you have to follow the correct order. I mean, numbers, accounting, and food, beverages, license, the unions, and all of those things that you have to follow by the book. That is almost always the same. You have to keep your eyes wide open and very alert on that. From my point of view, I think there's other areas that you need to plan depending on the location, on the place. We're talking about be very careful with human capital, and there's like always with human capital, it's levels of uncertainty. You never know, because human capital, never knows what's going to happen when there's going to be a change of owner. It depends on the termination of the employees, what's the carry out, their liabilities, the benefits, employee benefits. I mean, without doubt, collaborators or human capital or those resources are basic for the success and the right performance of service. If your human capital is not motivated, it's like people. If your people don't have a satisfaction, then your guests are not going to be satisfied. It's very difficult to have happy guests if your people are not happy. You have to define a plan, and it's also depending, or it has dependencies on the circumstances. I'm talking local circumstances, employee benefits. What happens if the employee benefits can change? What's going to happen with the management if there's a change of owner? There might be changes in management, or you have to really sit down and focus on what's being created, the whole plan, because things can happen when there's an owner or operator change, there's going to be probably that curve again. It's very important to take care of that. Now, focusing on the commercial aspects, when you think about clients, when there's a change awakens uncertainty. There's clients, there's people that leave. If the operator changes, the operator has its know-how. The operator must know the business. I mean, to be able to get up and recover, have a predefined plan to recover your clients or maintain, keep those captive customers. Because if, for example, if the commercial head is gone, and if that head or that leader takes the information with them, you need to keep a plan, a well-organized plan that's part of the due diligence. Part of the due diligence is planning ahead what's going to happen later, because then you're going to face that like decline there. If the operator knows the market, then you can recover and leave that batch. It's like that's part of the scenarios that you have to keep and have present. When you're changing a brand, changing an owner. Sergio, you faced many operations, so tell us what else could you share or contribute with in that operation. As Braulio and Engineer Ruiz were mentioning, the process starts from the contract, from the initial agreement or these like master agreements. There's like different visits that take place. You visit the areas before the transition. You understand procedures, you understand process and operations, the procedures by the operator. We must know the whens or give answers to the whens. When are we going to receive resources? Which are being offered to what? To really have them be equal, like what Braulio was mentioning. We know that the operators are very strong in the locations they're working in. It's like like muscles, strong muscles, as Braulio mentioned before. Those operators on site know the plaza, know the location, and based on that, we develop our pre-operation survey or visit. We go, it's like an advanced search. We check, we scan the operation, we go back, we keep the resources, which resources from the previous operators are going to be preserved, which are going to be adapted to the hotel operation. Basically, that's what we have done. There's procedures that have been a bit longer than others, yes. There's other processes that continue in the operation, but without doubt, the know-how of the operators who are present here today, plus the strength we provide as a structure, have been just an added bonus. It's just a plus. Plus, we continue this communication. Definitely, there's a lot of communication between parties, those who are sitting here and those that are represented by different operators. So very well. Now let's see if there's questions from the audience. Maria? I want to ask, what does this mean for Fibra? I mean, the fact that brands are operating hotels, what does this mean for Fibra? Does Fibra will continue its operations for hotels? It's like, I feel like you're asking me, but it's for the panel, right? I'll answer part of your question. The tendencies you're asking about, brands are operating. I think the tendency in our field, in our business, is like the other way around. It's like I think the brands are tending to become like a franchise. For example, like Hyatt, or it's like we have seen they have followed the path others followed. It's like more of like franchise activity than operations. They want to maintain like their luxury hotels, like as Oscar just mentioned before me, those like luxury hotels are being maintained, so that detail or fine detail of the hotels are maintained, but the tendency I can tell you now is like brands should not be operating. The brands should franchise. I think that's the strong silo, strong opportunity there. I think as Gabriel just mentioned, there's a saying in the hotel business: to become global, you have to be regional in that scale. So brands have understood that. Brands who know this have the expertise of the people that operate in Mexico, and they are just dedicated to brands and hotels with brands that they usually would not let go, just let them glow like global, but regional brands focus services, select services, those brands are being left on the hands of people that have the know-how in the market. It's not just the know-how of the market, but they have a whole network of operation and commercializing or business, activity in Mexico. Commercially speaking, or business in Mexico is different when you compare business in the States or business in Mexico. Even the terminology is different, even the terms are different, there's communication via telephone once a year. You visit the decision makers, but in Mexico, or in this republic, in Mexico as a nation, the link, the bond between these in this commercial activity is very close, and there's other like chambers of commerce that are not used to that. There's a whole network of contacts or people of contacts that are great contributors for this business. And I can add a few things. We've talked about how we break down the industry in Mexico. If we segment the industry, there's sector, for example, specifies that 80% of hotels in Mexico are, for example, el mesón de that, or this, like the inn of this inn, this hotel inn, and they don't have like a logo or a standard or it's like, and that helps us a lot because we, as Gabriel was mentioning, what are we giving? We're giving standards, the brand's own standards, because we're dedicated to comply. We comply with the experience, the customer's experience at a local level. We add the flavor that the national or the domestic guest requires. Being in Mexico, we provide that to the national user, independent or irrespective of the international standards. We have big companies. It's like systems. We have a system, corporate, legal systems. We compliance with budgets, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I always say, okay, there's like the black sheep, the black sheep that we always have, it's like, it's a positive sheep because I don't mean to say, okay, the spare tire, it's like in a marriage, there could be a third party in a marriage, and that's not a good third party when there's a marriage, and a marriage is composed of two or constituted of two. Consuelo Salazar de Numos. Two questions. First, out of the 80% that you've mentioned of the hotels in Mexico that do not have a logo or flag or that standard, which percentage do you, as operators, consider might just add themselves to these international brands? Do you think they will become operated by you at some point? Second question, out of the Fibra in hotels, which percentages are operated by you? Which percentage are operated by third parties? I'd like to answer your second question, what Oscar was mentioning. 28% of the hotels are being operated by third parties. Yes, represented. The rest are operated by internal operators or internal ops. When we talk about the opportunities of being able to operate hotels or convert hotels, like sounds a bit of what the Windham panel member mentioned a while ago. There's a great opportunity. We're talking about 150,000 rooms per night available that could be part or could be considered as part of the brand, and so as a result operated. I think that's an opportunity, a market opportunity there. I think there's the legal structure, the legal framework. When we talk about local levels, state entities is different when you think about the legal structure at international levels. For example, states' safety rules are different to others' safety rules, versus what the brand has as a safety standard. In general, for example, the hotels that I'm talking about that are like that percentage in Mexico, it's like they don't have the life and safety standards. They don't follow those standards that are not only important for our brands, but important for the operator. That adjustment is then different, as you mentioned in the panel. There's not like the package, like a consolidated package. There's no group that wants to just convert like their hotels to 5 hotels. Maybe you find a hotel that if it's object of a transformation, it can adapt. You can think of the triangle in the industry, like a pyramid of this triangle. There's a tertiary, there's the operator, brand, and owner there. In the case of these hotels or these 3 parties, the operator as the brand is not interested on using those hotels because those hotels don't follow the standards. So there's legal situations, so there's liabilities for the operator, for the brand. there's the standards. You need to invest on following standards, on achieving the standards in those hotels. There needs to be an investment or allocation of budget, so there's no risk or life threatening situations, as Braulio mentioned. Or okay, thank you, Jorge from Casa de Bolsa. I understand that having a hotel operator, I know that we try to avoid any conflict, or controversies between parties. I want to know, is there a feasibility of having Fibra operate other hotels that do not pertain or belong to the firm as an asset or to the group as an asset? Second question, why would you have three, four, five operators and not focus on one, trying to find profitability if it's affected? Okay, if we have operators have different expertise or experiences. So some of the operators operate their brands, their own brands. I think each one of them has shown their worth, and they meet their worth satisfactory. There's scales or there's levels. It's you don't just focus on operations with a third party. They have different scaled systems, and they do what they a good job in their area. I mean, when we don't think there's controversy or conflict of interest, and I mean, with Fibrain is very interested on having the performance of their hotels be the right performance, and we always want to be the best from the beginning of operations until today. I can tell you, when it comes to internal operations, the internal operator is aligned with the internal system or the internal procedures, and the same. It's like everybody has like the same participation and are part of like the asset of the company. So it's like the company will have great profits because the fees are linked directly to that profitability. I don't know if you want to ask a bit more. I think right here we have three external operators. We must remember there is an extra pair of external operators working in the Bajío area, and the Fibra determines which operator or selects the most efficient operator, and that's why there's levels in operation or graduation. There's somebody that has expertise in the market, that has a network of contacts, a commercial program, the sales division aligned. I mean, we have that in the place, and we have the capacity to apply that in the place, but the results would be seen faster if we also are linked to an operator that has the experience. We can define who or point out the operators that are right because they know the context or the setting to begin with. It's important for us to give results fast through an internal or third party operator, but my opinion is the same. I think it's convenient for Fibra to have different brands that is enriching their portfolio, and it gives Fibra value. Fibra becomes attractive. Now the brands definitely have their contribution. As Sergio just mentioned, brands have the scale economy and or that enables us as brands to buy, in volume or wholesale, because we buy at a better price. We go through procurement processes. We have a sales structure already built, which enables us to look for great business volume, get the different channels for distribution that must be used, and once we must identify, okay, the area or what the hotel is going to be providing service for all the segments involved. And for example, we might point out sectors that will generate a great volume for the hotel that's pointed at, and we have to, when we think about using a process, you have to think about it because it's a very, very important. Definitely, I must say that they contribute, it's when we think about what's being given to us as a responsibility and our liabilities in our hands. Our time is up. We thank the panel members for your valuable opinion.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is our third and last panel of the day in the introduction to the corporate governance. And we have the independent members of the Fibra in Technical Committee. I'm going to make the presentation. Mr. Rafael Gomez Eng. He's a partner of Growth and Profit Consultant. He was a partner of KPMG, where he directed the northern region. He worked as an independent counsel for the private enterprises and regulated organizations of the northern region. He was the ex-president of the IMF Group of Monterey Accounting Commission of IMPCP, and he was also represented in the International Accounting Standards Committee. Mr. Hector Medina. He's a current member of the Banco Ahorro FAMSA, Axtel, and Chihuahua Cement Group Board of Directors member. He was a president of the regional New Monterrey University from 2006 to 2012. He was executive vice president of finance and planning of CEMEX to 2010, and also the group Alpha. Adrian Garza is ex-director, advisor, and a partner of several financial institutions that are local and foreign, as well as ex-president, vice president, treasurer, and advisor of several entrepreneur associations, enterprises, and NGOs. President and ex-president and investor of several startups. And finally, and not least important, Everardo Elizondo. He's a current member of the administration board of directors of several enterprises. He is a Reforma newspaper reporter, and he worked as vice governor of the Bank of Mexico from 1998 to 2008. He was professor of economy in the Graduate School of Public Administration and Policies of the Tecnológico de Monterrey. As I mentioned, this is the last panel, and the topic is corporate governance. A name that is recent, but it's a concept that's very old. We can say that corporate governance is the determination of how you handle the enterprises. How do you generate value? But it's not specified what value to who, because that's something secondary to the corporate governance. So who has the right to have to that value added? Is it the investors? Is the community, the government? Who owns that? Let's not discuss that. Who has the right to that value? The first thing is to generate the value, because if there's no value, the distribution does not exist. At a more specific level, the corporate governance is determined by several elements. First, the model of business. How do you obtain the money, and where does it go? And we have to understand the investment process. Who decides who and where to invest? Who and how do you decide where do you ask for loans, and who has the property of the actions? Who are the investors? By the institutions, by the nature of administration. What is your experience? What is your preparation? What are your values? Another very important element is the accounting. What policies of management of your assets? What are your recognition of your income? The assessment of the yield and the report toward your advisors and your investors. And as far as the business model, the amounts are a new system of business in our country, and so that's why we are mentioning this corporate governance, because we have to guarantee to the investor that the enterprise is doing the things right. And so this is something that the members of the technical committee are very convinced that their corporate governance has to have been established to give this guarantee to their investors that is translated in the more generation of value. With these ideas as a beginning statements, my first question to Rafael is, what are the main differences of corporate governance between a stock company and a fiber? Congratulations, Joel, again. And trying to make this a global answer in the governance, corporate governance is administrated and conducted. And I made a list of aspects that I think that are very important to be able to separate the reason of one and the other. And I think that we're going to begin with a definition in a stock company. You have an assembly of action holders. So this represents a capital, and these are certificates that are stocks. And I think we're going to get into problems when we start talking of the trust fund. What are we talking about? I don't have a board of directors as we could have in a stock company, because I have a technical committee that gives instructions not to the board of directors, but a fiduciary that is going to handle this trust fund. And as you can see, I'm getting into aspects that are very important, of the differences between one and the other, that separate the complexity. How sure is this mechanism? The administration has something that it has to do, and the fiduciary must make sure that the contract is complied with. And so the fiduciary and the trust fund are supported by service providers, some of these that are related one to the other. And this takes us into another complication, which is the existence of conflicts of interest. But there are no conflicts of interest because these are aligned. And the related parts are related by a common certificate holding. And this makes me align myself and my actions. I have no interest in to cover a contract of acquisitions or procurement when a long term I'm compelled to create value in a portfolio that I must administer. So these related parts are charged their fees, and those fees, you have heard, there are a constant worry, and not only in Fibra in all the sector, because this is new, because the oldest Fibra in Mexico, it has 4 or 5 years old. So 3. Oh, oops, I made them older and unwillingly. So that's experience that we have, 3 years. So how are we going to create confidence? Because everything has to be transparent. There must be accountability. And how we're going to do this? We're going to review the different schemes of the services contracts that are related to the services. And we also have committees, because it's a stock company that has auditing and evaluations and planning. The same thing happens in the Fibra, with a twist, which is specific to the investment, because here you have Adrian, which is a president. It's a critical function of operation of the fiber. The procurement process is the most important one and the riskier one. especially in this growth, because if you make an improper acquisition, it's going to have complications long term. So we have to be very careful in what we procure and into our portfolio. And dividends, which is very important in a stock company. Policy of dividends that can be constant, because it's going to depend on the conditions of the business. In the case of the Fibra, you have minimum of 95% of the fiscal results, and that 95% of results, the stockholder or certificate holder is investing in a real estate that's going to have liquidity all the way. There's a very important part that has to do with the fiscal situations. We have a general fiscal rules and regulations. In the case of fibras, they are born and modified and transformed according to the adaptation to the laws, the tax laws that give the origin so they can operate as such. And you were witnesses that at the end of the year there were different initiatives and modifications to the tax laws and produce lack of certainty and a willingness to find out what is going to be the effect on us and what you're going to be able to be taxed by. And it changes how the Fibra operates, and that we had to make some adaptations according to how operations were going to happen day to day. And the ownership of the Fibra, you're going to receive 2 invoices, one directly of the trust fund, and another one that of the service providers of food and drinks. So that's the way it's going to be affected. The Fibra is going to be affected by these modifications to the tax law. And we're conscious of this. And that's why we ask from the administration everything that has to do with the interpretation, that we have to make decisions in relationship to a tax decision. Let's not make these decisions by ourselves, because the finance consultants are the ones that should take these decisions, because they should give us in writing their opinions so that we can have due diligence as advisors every day of what the modifications we have to make. So we have to be very strict on following up these changes. And also a stock company, and as a fiber, how are we going to establish my value? And each one is going to be defined specifically to be able to compete against each other. I think that each one is very strict, as well as with one as for the other. We differentiate Fibra in that everything that we're doing today, in the understanding of the industry and the operation and the alliances, and to have to do with hotel activity is very different. The Hotel Fibra than another one that has a portfolio of industrial installations, hubs. So it's very different, one activity from the other. So I conclude this part of my presentation, and to speed up our session of questions and answers at the end, we have the question for Hector. What is the challenge that the sector of Fibras has as far as corporate governance? I think in the answers in your initial speech and what Rafael has said, you have part of the answer to that question. Because the differences there are between an association or a stockholder association and a Fibra with a trust fund. You have differences in challenges that they both have. For example, we have the new things, because this is a structure that is new for our country. They are designed to grow, to have a process of growth that is very strong. This is what we have seen with all the fibras. And this growth generates the corporate governance, because a base that is very clear for the growth is the transactions with related partners. And the transparency of these transactions require a corporate governance that is efficient and transparent, to ensure that the investors are appropriately represented. An aspect of the fibras is that this is the main challenge, especially in the beginning. The second challenge is the process of adaptation, because most surely a new sector that is evolving and in a dynamics that is constantly modified, especially in relationship to laws and regulations, and that it requires a process of adaptation. The agility of adaptation is a very important challenge to the corporate governance as well as the administration of the enterprises. I don't want to add much more in things that have already been said in as far as social responsibility and sustainability of the business model, because these are challenges that are common to all the enterprises or any organization. But I want to insist that the decision-making process or of investment, which is the focus of the growth of Fibras, I think is the main challenge of the corporate governance. This is very interesting, because in the United States, as somebody already mentioned, there's a saying that says growing pains, because growth is painful, because growth is the cause of bankruptcy in the United States. So it's very important that we, and this has to do with investment, and we have to take care of that. What is the effort that Fibra In has done to have better governance practices in the corporation to make transparent its investments? Well, the first thing good afternoon. My colleague has given support to my presentation. I didn't know what he was going to say, but obviously he's the one that knows more. But using our independence, we did not exchange opinions before our presentations, and we also didn't talk to our administration about this. But I think we're going to complement each other and what we're saying, what Hector and Rafael said. The communications is an indispensable requirement with investors, with the analysts, with the media, with the regulators, and with the working team of the Fibra, because the communication has to begin at home. That's what we have to begin with. But transparency is that window through where we're going to see good corporate governance. I'm going to mention the role of independent advisors, which are essential for a corporate governance, and their designation is qualified or certified by the assembly meeting. There's a clause, number 9 of our charter, and there's a summary of 4 pages. The whole charter has 15, and it's executive part of the charter, where we speak of the role of the different independent members, as well as the committees that are formed by these members. There are 3 members, there are 5 members. Some are duplicated in committees, auditing and investment and practices. These committees, even though the members, we are 5 and 3 in the technical committee, and we also participate with vote capacity. If 3 of these 5 oppose any decision or a proposal of the technical committee, with that we have a majority. 3 of the 5 have the possibility of establish power in the assembly meeting. But I'm going to say a phrase that I love. There's a new clause in the 9 clause that I was mentioning, that it says, casually, I happen to have it with me. The members, the independent members that sign a confidentiality agreement, and they're always going to create value in their actions. Sometimes this is surprising because they think that the independents are there to supervise. No, it's not that way. The independent advisors are very conscious of our responsibilities in front of all the groups. We are supposed to represent the groups and inform them and be accountable. And the members of the committees and of these independent advisors are a group of persons that have long time experience, and to comply with our work we must see how the Fibra is developing its actions in the areas. And the committees have met more than 50% of the times, every time a procurement project is presented. This is done so we don't just meet to analyze these acquisitions, and we also meet to other actions of the committees in themselves, but also we have tools such as determine the cost of capital and average and how it varies, to evaluate the investments and the tax situations, how it's going to affect us, the loan systems, the accounting, the regulations, and the marketplaces, the market studies. All these tools are added to other actions with officers, and we always have open doors. The Fibra hired a consultant company to diagnose and propose methods to optimize the actions and the relationships between the Fibra and the independent advisors. And there's other opportunities, as Dr. Diane Wong. She offered something about corporate governance, and we talked to her this morning on this matter, and there have been good fruits to our actions to have permanent improvement and in the transparency and corporate governance. Joel was mentioning this morning about transparency and fees, royalties, and other fees, and this has to do with what I'm mentioning. So the public must not only know the results, but also how it gets to these results. Thank you. Everardo, as an independent member of the technical committee, with your experience and knowledge, what are the economic factors in 2014 that will benefit the Fibra in? To begin with, as you know very well, or maybe you know better than I, or maybe I'm exaggerating, I don't know. And 2013 was not a very good year economically. It was an excellent year for policy, because after a long time, it was made a reality, a very important agenda of structural needs, because the investors were proposing a long time ago, but now finally the political capacity was able to take it to fluid creation, and this gave the important aspects because it gave a specific fluidity to these reforms. But economically, the year was not as good because there have been a lot of reasons that have been mentioned previously. Initially, the weakness of exports to the United States. There was less fortitude in the industrial sector, and there was a very important delay in the public expense that was finally being improved at the end of the year. And the most recent data, it goes in the same direction for January. And this, of course, hurt us in the offer side, and the hurricanes and the bankruptcy of certain areas. And we hope that all these factors of 2013 do not repeat themselves. But, of course, we were disillusioned with the results, and, of course, it was a humility lesson for all of us. Well, it was a severe lesson. And for the forecasting was not as efficient. What we had said 2013 was going to be. Oscar said a lot of what I wanted to say, because those same factors that were used as explanation for what happened in 2013, we changed them of sign and are going to answer the question by Adrian. We think that 2014 is going to be a better year. Especially, I would like to underline something that we know a little bit about, and you know also, is the continuous convincement that the U.S. economy is finally recovering. Part of its situation is probably going to grow 2.8, maybe 3 point something percent. There are signs that make these forecasts that is more reliable. Of course, you know, forecasts are reliable to a certain point only. And we think that we have left behind all these tax problems, and we come to the promotion that's most important in Mexico, which is the exportation of products towards the United States, plus the renewal of the public spending, and that gives economic growth. And this, we believe that we will be around 3% in growth in Mexico. Together with the United States, we're going to see finally established growth with money coming from the United States, families that sent to Mexico, to the lower income families. And this, of course, is going to promote consumption, and this is what has been lagging behind this consumption. And I'm a little worried. I know I finished my time, but I'm worried of several things. Is the external environment, if we can say that, is the higher rates, interest rates. I think what we have 1.5 that are still going to grow, and the tendency is to have higher interest rates, and the fragility of certain emerging economies that have vulnerability that is very importantly underlined. Speaking of structure, and that have aspects that are going to affect their external accounts. They make them open to a crisis that could happen, such as what happened in Ukraine. And in the internal aspect, as a risk, I'm a little bit worried that we have 13 consecutive months of a fall in the consumers' confidence. This is the first months that were not too good. February we have, at least that's what my aide, but maybe little later I might have a more precise data. But the data for February, we haven't had very strong growth. And as Oscar was mentioning, that's the second part of the year that we're going to have a growth that is going to be strong enough to have an average of 3% that everybody is waiting for. And finally, what I would say is that precisely thinking of the failures of last year and the uncertainty that we still have in 2014, something that I have mentioned many times to the administration of Fibra. I'm sorry if you forecast frequently, because in this case we need to do it very frequently to be analyzing continually the forecasts, or not the forecast to the future, but of course everything forecast is the future, but we have to do this more frequently and more carefully to see what changes have occurred. And this is what I can say as an independent member of the Fibra Technical Committee. Thank you very much. I think you're all tired now. You're not asking any questions. Matsumura, from more than a question, is an advice, I would say. From the beginning, Fibras have had a situation of a lack of confidence from their corporate governance. And what I've frequently heard is that, first, how independent are the independent members? Are they assigned by the management or not the minority shareholders? What independence do they really have? And if the interests are aligned because the investors have the opportunity of double dipping, which of course you earn fees and you also double dip. So how can we make the investors have more confidence in them? We must clear up what you're mentioning. If three independents is very difficult to hold, because my wife is outside and I'm not that independent, you know? Because we were proposed by the management, but approved by the meeting of the assembly. So therefore our post was established that way. As far as interest, as Adrian said, the focus of the advisors, and it's not the only advisory committee I participate in, our job is to create value. To create value, and it's very difficult to create value for the minority holder. Here, there are 100 chairs, and I have to take care of the 20 chairs of the minority. I'll take care of them if you identify them, but in an entity where everything is mixed, to take care of the minority holder is very difficult, or it's impossible, because you have to take care of the whole entity to be doing the things with due diligence, with fidelity to the entity. And I would also say there's another element, but that has to do with the process. That within the committee there is a nomination committee that for any member of the technical committee is formed by the majority of independent members, and that take the proposal, any substitution, and has to be ratified by the assembly of the stockholders. And this is an element of the process. But another is that the structure of the Fibras is very complex. Here, we have seen how there are elements of the structure that the operators, the others are the brand owners, and the administrators of the Fibra, and everybody participates in that structure of a business model that is special and new. And if we analyze this, separating the different elements, it's not just different from any other enterprise where there's suppliers that can be part of the administration. And the double dipping happens everywhere. or can happen everywhere. So I was making reference to the transparency in the strongest part of decision making. This is our main challenge, and that's the way we feel. We feel that the role that the technical committee has through its independent members, and also that it has to do with the administration of the Fibra. This is fundamental to ensure this transparency. I'm going to answer perhaps with a lack of modesty of certain professions, but I'm not going to answer. I'm going to answer. I take it as a flower offered. Why? Because you can compare. That's what you can do. You can always compare administration and independent advisors of other Fibras. We don't live off of this because otherwise we have been run out of our homes. We have 35 years of experience in our different fields, and we still have our reputation not as soil as it could be. It's more or less pristine. So you can check what we have done in the past. So we still have, even though it might not seem so, we have our reputations to take care of. We have more to lose than to win if there were something inappropriate. So we also have a vocation of service. We have been participated in organizations that have charity, social objectives that belong to our curricula. And this is not, it's not that we're just totally selfless, but we want to give something to our society, to our country, and that promotes our action. So that's the paradigm. You can compare. I also want to say something else. There are two elements that are very important in the independent advisors. The integrity of each one of those advisors has to be without flaw. As you said, you can verify that. And then it's a trust fund. As Mexicans, by birth, we are very, very the way we are, and I just don't want to say anything else about that. That is part of our way since we were born. We're not trusting. Thank you. I'm from the stock exchange. I want to ask you from the technical committee, how do you evaluate, or what is your analysis process for the procurement of an asset? Is the value really just? What is the role you have for this evaluation? Here's the president of the committee. There are several criteria, several levels of analysis. Depending on the amount of investment is the amount of involvement and decision criteria that are used up to the technical committee, where you have a triple analysis that has to go through several
to the administrator, to the committee that corresponds, that has to follow certain investment practices, and then the technical committee, depending on, and the criteria, for accreditation. I mean, they're harsh. They're very harsh, very tough. So there must be like a consultant, like a market consultant. Richard Katzman is in this case the consultant, and he is the one that has a lot to lose. I mean, in my opinion, if my opinion is okay, this market segment for this hotel is like this and this and this and the opinion of the administrator or the manager is very important. Is it part of the strategy? Does it fit in the strategy? What do we expect as cap rate? What do the investors expect? The end investor expects from this. The due diligence, the legal side of it, the accounting entries, the assessment, the simple assessment, a simplified assessment as an investment, as an asset, not necessarily as a flow generator. Let's not like speak about the financial flows, the financial behavior, discounts, and for example yields and so on, etc. Because that's done by more than one, by many disciplines. Those who analyze the market, the administration, and it's a complex process, and it does require more than one meeting, depending on the type of investment. And sometimes it's iteration. There's iteration in this process. So it's like going and coming. It's bilateral. It goes and comes. So that's it. I'm so sorry, as Rafael said, and Hector stressed on it. In reality, the most important side of it is like the procurement process for Fibra is core. Being able to operate is important, yes, but when it comes down to operation of an asset, if you go through a poor procurement process, it's negative. I want to I'm an accountant. Nobody's perfect, okay? Nobody's perfect. My colleague Gerardo, you're not going to face goodwill. When it comes to transactions and accounting entries and operations, we're going through an asset procurement process. When the physical estimator or calculated value of the procurement process that has an estimation of that 10%, you have to justify your actions. So and you'll see that not the acquisitions, the procurements are like hard assets. I think that's something that's very important to consider, the asset type. So thank you very much. I think that our planner specifies that it's time for lunch, and I'm sure that you are willing to answer any questions during lunchtime, during our lunch break. You're going to be available. Of course we are. Thank you very much. Thank you for our external third party or independent consultants. There's Federico Ortosen could not be present today. I mentioned him so well. We have reached the conclusion phase for the panel. I like to thank each and every one of you for being present today. We're going to have also some ideas that I want to stress on for you, but overall I would want you, as Adrian mentioned a while ago, I want you to compare. Fibra is giving you in this environment, face-to-face environment, up front and close, the faces of those people with ideas, the concepts of the third-party consultants that work with Fibra, and that it was well said. They prepared and they said what they had to say, whatever they wanted. So we brought to you our operators, so and evaluate, you assess and think, okay, do we have good operators? I mean, if you consider that our operators are aligned to our processes, and I'm talking about this for the investors. We brought to you international brands we operate with. And of course, before you, we called our CFO, our CEO, and me here to serve you. For you to, you're here face to face. You can ask the questions directly, any questions that you've wanted to formulate and to provide closure to our day, I want to take your attention or express the following. We want to express the advantages that we believe Fibra in gives back, the benefits and advantages. This is why we do believe it's a valuable proposal in the real estate business in Mexican context. Paying attractive dividends quarterly, every trimester, every quarter. That's the way we will work and continue growing. We have proven sustained growth and showed also the profitability of investments. The detail, we have really drilled down, thanks to your questions, drilling down into the decision-making process at the committees to go through the decision-making process. We're always looking for constant improvement of operational metrics. We analyze with our operators. With our operators, we've talked about how we take a unit, we take a hotel, and make it efficient. We give it that plus profitability. We have a geographically diversified portfolio with brands in different segments. We are now directly involved in the soul of hotel business and how this Fibra works in this regard and in different areas, and how we're prepared to comply adequately. We have also mentioned that we are analyzing the current fee project or scheme to adapt it to the better practices, always at receiving third-party consulting advice. We will be benefiting also, probably not immediately, but in midterm and long-term benefits. We will benefit by the tax reforms and the economical growth. And with this, I give closure to our day in our Fibra in hosted event. So I invite you to go to the venue next door for lunch.